Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to do some mixed media creating, and I'm going to be mixing some old with some new. And I've got some brand new products coming out with Craft World, the brand new Craft World website, and I will have links in the video description on where you can find those. They will be up this week, so if you love mixed media stuff, if you like versatile products, I hope you'll give them a look. And if not, maybe you can dig through your stash and see some similar things that you can use to create along with me today. I'm starting off with a sketch on some watercolor paper, and this is 100% cotton watercolor paper. It's a very affordable brand. It's the company Meeden, and they have a variety of sizes, but this 7-inch by 10-inch block works really well, especially if you're intimidated by larger pads of paper, or you don't want to commit to anything too big. Now, speaking of being afraid of paper, sometimes it's scary to get going on a white, fresh piece of paper. So what I find helps me is just flicking water on the paper, because then when you go ahead and start painting, some of that paint is going to seep out into the areas where you flicked water. And I think that just gives you a little bit of a spontaneity and can help you loosen up a little bit. Because that's what I hear a lot from students. They want to know how to loosen up. They feel like their work feels too tight and fussy. That's a great way to loosen up with watercolor. Speaking of watercolor, the watercolors I'm using here are by Paul Rubens. I have a review on these. They are the Ding series large ceramic pan watercolors. They're only available in 6 colors, the colors you see here. And while they're fun to play with, I think they're a bit expensive for what they are, but I have a full review on those if you want to learn a little bit more. If you've been thinking about getting them yourself, or you're just curious about what are those monstrously large ceramic pan watercolors. They're fun to play with, especially when you want to loosen up. But I think they would be best suited for when you're working really large, or maybe working really large with children. In fact, I think I'll probably, because there's no toxic chemicals or pigments used in these paints, I think I'll probably bring them with me next time I teach a kids class at the library, because I think it would just be really fun. So what I'm doing here is collaging with some scraps. Now, this yellow piece is a leftover stencil innard that I saved when I was making some stencils last month. And then I've got a scrap of mulberry paper. So I'm going to share a tip for collage. And this tip actually comes from me being very lazy. And when I'm done collaging and I have some scraps left over that are too small to store, to put away, I just throw them in a bowl, and then like once a month I will try to make something with what's in the bowl. Now, this stencil here is one of the new products that I have coming out with Craft World, and what I love about it is it has 4 patterns, and you can repeat the patterns to make larger backgrounds, or you can just use little bits and pieces of them. It gives you each of these stencils that I have coming out give you 4 designs in one stencil, so it doesn't take up a lot of space, doesn't cost a lot of money, and you've got a lot of options. The text stamp is also from one of my new background sets from Craft Stash. It's just got a bunch of different varieties of ledger paper and backgrounds and splotches and different things like that. Basically, for something that I designed, I wanted to earn a spot in your art room, which means it's got to be versatile, it's got to be worth your money, and it's got to be something you're going to use over and over again. It's not going to go out of style. Now, you may have noticed that I used another rubber stamp there, that chicken wire. That's one that I've had in my stash for years, and that's another one of my goals. I want anything I add to the world, or anything I add to my stash, to be useful with the other things I already have and not be redundant. And that's when I'm designing a product, that's what I'm thinking of. It's like, is this going to be useful? Is it going to last? Is it going to be relevant 10 years from now? And I think these designs are. Now this paper is dried, I'm going in with some crayons just to add some marks and to add some bold colors. And you could use any crayon, but these are an art crayon. These are the Neo Art 6901s by Caran d'Ache. They are a light fast crayon. The Neocolor ones or Neocolor 2s would also work well. The nice thing about the Neocolor ones or these art crayons is that they're not going to dissolve if I decide to go in with some more watercolor on top. They will resist the water. So it just depends. Keep that in mind when you're working. If you're going to need to go over top of something, will it stick or will it resist? What effect do you want? And as long as you keep that in mind, you can layer up all kinds of media in your work. I love to add different collage elements. I love to jelly print on different papers. This is some deli paper that I did, and I just think that it makes such a really nice veil of color here and there. And plus it's really thin, so it's easy to glue down. You don't have the, it doesn't want to wrinkle or pop up on you. It just sticks really well. And then I've got some oak tag that I had gel printed with this kind of like rusty effect that I don't know. I just like this contrast. I like that we have some papers that feel like rusty metal. I've got some papers that are really have grasses in them that feel very organic. I have really thin pieces that I can just kind of layer over, and it will pick up all the grooves and textures of the piece down below. I've got something really graphic like that stencil piece, and basically I just push stuff around until I like the layout of everything. And what I always tell my students is that if you're not happy with it, it's not done yet. And a lot of times that's what I find is people don't push it quite far enough. They're not happy with it, but they don't realize it's not done yet. It just feels like it needs more. And yes, overworking is a thing. Don't get me wrong. But I find a lot of times with mixed media, you can go a lot further without overworking. And then if you do overwork, you can always take a palette knife and some watercolor ground or some gesso, depending on what you plan on adding on top, and kind of scrape it over in some areas that feel overworked, and then you get to kind of pull back that fresh paper again and make it new. And then I like to flip the whole thing over and use an X-Acto knife to trim off the excess. This is one's actually by Fiskars. It's I think called the Clever Lever design or something, but I like it because the blades don't get loose and it's really easy to change the blades. Now here I'm using the other stencil that I mentioned. I have 2 stencils coming out with 4 designs on each stencil. I'm using this to get some kind of like rustic stars in the background. It reminds me of like the sometimes you'll see these iron stars on like farmhouse stuff. I'm sure it comes from something, probably comes from like horse farming. I don't know. Horse farming. Do they farm horses? Or I don't know. It looks very ranchy. But the thing that's really cool about these stencils is you can use them with all your medias. You can use them with paint. You can use them with ink. You can use them with pastes. And that's what I wanted to do there. Start off with a really thin layer with the ink, and then I can add something thicker over top and kind of carry the theme around. So that's another thing. If you feel like your mixed media work just looks like somebody sneezed a bunch of random stuff on your page, you just need to repeat your elements. So if you're using that stencil with an ink on the bottom layer, try using it with a paste on the top layer, and that's going to carry the theme throughout. But also what I was going back to and mentioning that like whatever you add to your stash should make your other things more useful, not redundant. If you choose things that are in your style, things that you like, not just things that are trendy, then your stuff's all going to work together. I have a certain flair that I like, a certain type of genre that I like. I like things that are rustic. I like things that are vintage. I like things that are timeless. And that specific aesthetic that I go for, as long as I pick things that I like and not things that I see other people use and I think it looks cool because somebody else's project looked really cool, but it's not really me. As long as I get those things that are really me, everything goes together. So now I'm going back to that star design on my stencil. Now I'm taping it off the extra openings because I don't want to get paste where I don't want it. And I'm going to use the Shimmer Relief Paste. Now this is a fairly new product by Altenew. You can actually use acrylic paint for this. You could take acrylic paint and mix it with texture paste if you need a little more body, if your paint's too thin. You could use all kinds of different stuff with this, but I am using this relief paste because it's just the color that I wanted, this kind of pewtery silver color, and I'm adding that over some of the collage elements that felt a little too boring. Like if I feel like I have one area that's just a little too much, then I'll try to break it up. And using stencil through a paste works really well because you can still see, you're not covering up all your hard work. You can still see that. And I think it just adds a little bit of an extra touch. Now, another thing you can do to add a little bit of an extra definition is to go in with some markers. So I've got some acrylic paint pens and I've got some waterproof fine liners. And I can go in and add little bits of detail here or there. So I can bring certain areas into focus, such as the face on the rooster. That generally faces are a focal point. And the way I have this rooster placed is that using the rule of thirds, if you were to divide a canvas up equally into thirds, vertically and horizontally, your focal points, generally you'd want them to fall where the crosshairs of your grid would be, and that's right where the face is. And so that's a place that I want to catch your attention and maybe have your eyes linger on a bit. And by adding a little detail there with the pens and markers, it works really well. So pull your supplies together, see what works together, and if you're interested in these products, you can find them now at Craft World, or if not right now, within a couple days at Craft World. I'll have links in the video description. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.